Hey, what's up everybody? I'd like to welcome you to another Juice tutorial. And today what we're going to do is we're going to use a filter and get a filter implemented into our synthesizer. So we're just continuing on with our synthesizer tutorials. So this is going to cover a lot of the same kind of information that I did the last tutorial. The last tutorial was almost an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fly through this as quickly as possible, and I'm not going to cover things in as much detail. So all I've done here is I've just added a filter .cpp and a filter.h, and I've done that using the producer to add those classes. If you hit this plus button here, since we're working with a component class, since it's going to be holding all of our UI information for our filter, we're doing add new component class, and I've split it between a CPP and a header, just in case you're wondering where I'm kind of getting all this from. So before we start, I'm going to just make a clarification on some things we did the last tutorial. So if you recall, what we did was we had we created a bunch of sliders for our ADSR envelope. And so one new thing that I learned was that because we're using the audio processor value tree state to connect these values between the UI and the plugin processor, I actually don't even need this slider listener class here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete this out of here, and then we need to delete a couple other things as well, just so everything works. So if you recall, there's a pure virtual function that we needed to implement when we added the slider listener class, which is this slider value changed, and we can just delete that here. And then if I go to my .cpp here, we can take out this these add listeners, because we don't need those anymore, because the tree state is actually is just conveying these values over to the processor side now. So we actually don't even need these listeners anymore. So that's only if we're implementing this slider value changed class. So we don't actually even need any of that stuff anymore. And so I'm just going to get rid of it all. And so what we're going to do is we're also going to refactor some of this code as well, just make it a little bit more nice and neat. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to spend as much time explaining why I'm doing some of these different things, because I covered a lot of it last tutorial. So I'm just going to copy over just a lot of the stuff that I explained the tutorial before. And if you have any questions as far as why I'm doing it, you might want to check the last tutorial. So at the moment, we're just doing this. We're just copying and pasting over a lot of the functionality that we needed from the envelope class. So let's see, what else do we need here? If we go to our .cpp, I think we need to implement our constructor function for our processor. So we can just do that here. And I'm going to fly quite quickly through this. So I hope it's not too quick. As I said before, I did a lot of it last tutorial. So I'm just copying a lot of that stuff that we went through. So I'm just copying my header file for my plugin processor so I need that because I need to be able to access my processor class. So let me go over here to my .h, and I can put this in private. This is just my processor object. Just going to build, make sure I'm good so far. And so yeah, so like I said before, or maybe I didn't say it before, the reason I'm doing this is covering some of the same information and everything, but that I wanted to go ahead and just finish up the synthesizer with you guys. So I'm just not leaving you hanging, and we just get like a good implementation. It's not going to be like bug proof and probably the most efficient synthesizer that you've ever seen in your life, but it'll be one that works, and hopefully one that will give people ideas of ways that they can expand upon the stuff that we've implemented in these tutorials. So that's all good to go. I'm also going to copy some of the UI, some of the UI stuff that I've done from a finished implementation that I have, and I'm just going to kind of copy it and paste it in here. It's nothing really, too out of this world, but I'll explain it as I go. So we have this. Filter that we're building. We're going to go ahead and set a size for 200, 200. If you recall, that's the size that we're setting all of our components to. So our oscillator and our envelope both have the same size. And then for the time being, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just paint the background black. So I could just do G.fill all, and then colors black, and that fills it black. And then what else can we do here? So what we need for our filter, we're going to need three things. We're going to need two sliders, one for the filter cutoff, one for the filter resonance, and then we're going to need to build another combo box like we did for the oscillator. And for that, we're just going to have a couple different filter states that we're going to be able to switch between: low pass, high pass, and band pass. So what we'll do is we'll just go in here. We'll just start creating some sliders. So we got slider, filter cutoff. Then we're going to make a filter resonance. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and start implementing my my value tree state objects and everything. Just start going and implementing that as quickly as possible. So this is going to be audio processor value tree state, and then this is going to be a slider attachment, and then this is going to be, I'll just call this filter val, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the resonance. So this is connecting our processor side to our UI side, and making sure that we're able to communicate the values that are going back and forth between the dials and the values that we're modifying on the processing side. So here we go, slider attachment, and we'll call this res val. And then what we could do is we can go over here to the processor side, and we can start implementing that in our processor tree. So we'll start creating these parameters that we're going to call filter cutoff, and filter resonance. So we could do tree, create and add parameter. I'll just call this filter cutoff, and I'll do it with caps. I'll do it lowercase again. And then this one I'll just call filter val, and then I'll create that in just a second. Then we're going to, let's see, we'll set the cutoff to, let's just say 400 hertz to start off with. And then these are just going to be null pointers. And then I'm going to create this normalizable range object. It's got to be of type float. And then I'm going to call this filter val. And then this is going to go between 20 and let's just say 10,000 hertz. Okay, and then I'll put an F here to make sure it's a float. Okay, so that's fine. And then we're going to do the same thing for the resonance. And then it's going to be a type float. This will be res val. And then I'll start it off at 1, and we can go up to 5. And then I'm just going to do the same kind of thing, tree, create and add parameter. Then this is going to be filter res, and then filter res. So this is called res val. And then I'm just going to put the default value at 1. And then this is just going to be null pointers again. So that's fine. Cool. So now what we'll do is we'll go down here to our process block. And then so now we need, so now we're going to have these values. They're going to go from the UI side. So we're going to get those from when we're moving the dial or the slider. And then what needs to happen is that the tree state is going to grab the value. And then what we need to do is we need to relay that over to our synth voice class, as we discussed last tutorial. So I haven't created this function yet, but I'll create it very shortly. So we're just going to call this, let's see, get filter params. And then I'm just going to start. Some of these I haven't created yet, so we're going to be kind of all over the place. So let's see. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do filter type, which is something that I haven't created yet because I need to create a menu for that. So we're going to do filter get raw parameter value, and then this is going to be filter what we call that. So we just call it filter cutoff. So we'll just call it filter cutoff. Then get raw parameter value, and then this is filter res. Okay, so I haven't this one here, filter type, I haven't invented that yet and I haven't invented this method here, get filter params, but I'm going to do that very shortly here. So let's go ahead and just do we're going to do our menu here. So create a parameter for that. So we're just going to create a normalizable range of type float. I'm going to call this filter type or filter. Let's see. I'll call it filter type val, and then we'll go from 0, and we'll make 3 choices. So there will be a low pass, a high pass, and a band pass. So it's going from 0 to 2. And then we're going to do tree, create an add parameter. And then this will be filter type. Filter type. And then we have filter type val. And then the default value is going to be 0. Once again, these are going to be null pointers for now. And that's cool. So now we need to go back over to the filter itself. We need to actually create a menu. We need to create a menu. So we need to use the combo box class, and then we need to create the slider or combo box attachment to attach to this thing here that we have called filter type. So I'm going to put this up here just so everything is in the same order. So we're going to go back over here to the filter class. We're going to make this combo box here. So I'm going to call it combo box. And then I'll call this filter menu. And then, as I said before, we don't need a combo box listener for this because we're going to be implementing all of this via the state tree or tree state. I don't know whether it's state tree. It's tree state actually. Okay, here we go. So we're going to make another scoped pointer here, and this is going to be audio processor value tree state. And then this one here is a combo box attachment because we're making a combo box. We're making a menu this time. And then this is going to go filter type val. Okay, so now we can go ahead over here and start getting busy on our menu. So we could do filter menu add item. Did I call it filter menu? Yeah, that's cool. So first one is going to be low pass. And then the item ID, remember it has to start from 1. You can't do a combo box menu from 0. It has to start from 1. So filter menu, and we're just going to do this for high pass and band pass. And then this is band pass. And then this is going to be 3. Then I believe we need filter menu set justification type just to let it know where we want the text in the menu. We could do justification centered like that. And we need to add it and make it visible as a child component of the filter class that we're in. So we need ampersand and filter menu. So there we go. So that's cool. That's the menu there. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do the combo box attachment. So we got filter type val. So since this is a scoped pointer, we could use the new operator here. Filter type val equals new audio processor value tree state combo box attachment. Then we have a couple parameters here that we just need to pull from the API, and we'll just go ahead and do that now. So we go to this, and then we just find combo box. And actually, I got the wrong one. I need the one right under it. This one here. So we need the state to control, the parameter that we want to control, and then the box that we want to control. So we're going to, once again, the processor tree that we have on the processor. So we call that processor.tree. And then the param is called filter type. And then we're using filter type is going to be controlled by this filter menu. So that's the combo box that we're using to control. Okay, so I'm just going to build this real quick, make sure that we're all good to go. Build failed. Okay. Oh yeah. So no get filter params in synth voice. Okay, cool. So I forgot to build this method here. So we'll just go ahead and build this real quick. So we're just going to go into the synth voice class. So this is where all of our parameters are getting updated. So I'm going to try to keep this in order. So we got the oscillator type, and then we can just put it right here below oscillator type. So this will be void get filter params. Is that what I called it? Params. So let's go back here. So get filter params, then we got filter type, filter cutoff, and filter res. So these are float pointers when we're getting the raw parameter value. So we just need to remember that when we're creating our function. So float, filter type, float, filter cutoff, and float, filter res. So I'm just going to use this little divider just to keep everything kind of nice and neat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 global variables in my synth voice class, so I can just kind of pass these variables around within the class. So I'm going to create an int that's going to call, we're going to just call that filter. I'm going to call this filter choice since I've already called the other one filter type. And then I'm going to do a float, and then that's going to call, we're going to call that called, I'm just going to call it cutoff. And then I'm going to call one resonance. Okay, running out of names for these variables. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically I'm just bringing these values in, and then I'm just assigning them to a global variable so I can just pass them throughout the class if I need them. Okay, so here we go. So we got filter choice equals, and then we're just going to dereference the choice that the number that's gonna sit at the memory location of filter type. So that I'm gonna say cutoff equals, then we're just gonna dereference this the number that's sitting there at filter cutoff, and then filter res. Oh, actually it's called res. Did I just call it res? Where is my mouse? Hold on one second here. My mouse is acting crazy. Oh, where is it? Oh, my mouse has died. Hold on one second here. Oh, what's happened here? What has happened? Oh, one second. My mouse has just kind of died out on me. Maybe I've just moved it too fast or something. Okay, one second. Sorry about this. Okay, cool. We're back on. Okay, so what did I call that? I called that resonance. Equals filter res. Oh, we need the star there. Okay. So that should be fine now. So let's go ahead and build this, see if we have anything else that I've kind of forgotten about. Everything looks good. So build succeeded. So that's fine. And then, so we're going to get the filter params here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set another function here that I'm going to call set params. So we're going to set that to type double, because what we're going to do is we're going to assign the filter type, and then we're just going to output that to our process block. So we're going to do set filter, and then it doesn't need any arguments. And then what I can do is I can just say if filter choice is equal to 0, so that would be the first item in our menu. And so what we need to do is we need to create a maxi filter object. Okay, and I'm just going to call that filter 1. And so I'm just getting all this stuff from the Maximilian class here that we've added on a couple tutorials ago, if you're wondering where I'm going. So like I said, I'm not really explaining a whole lot this tutorial, and I'm just kind of flying through it like a bat out of hell. But so I hope you don't think, oh man, he's going too fast, because and the reason I'm going really fast is because I've kind of already explained this, but I don't want to just like do it and not kind of explain it to you. So so here we go. So we're going to do, if the filter choice is 0, we can just return, what did I call it? Filter 1. And then we got low res. Yeah. And then what we can do is we can put an input a cutoff, and a resonance. Okay, so I'm just going to hold off on this for a second because I've just remembered something else that I wanted to factor in. So what I wanted to do is I have the ADSR down here in my render next block, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull this. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to make this into a function here, just that returns the. It'll just return the signal with the envelope. So I'm going to call this a type double because we want it to return a double again. Just going to put a separator there. Set envelope. And then it's not going to have any arguments. And all it's going to do is it's just going to return. It's just going to return this. Envelope 1.adsr, like that. So I can just paste that in there. And now the reason that I'm doing that is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I've got the envelope. So let's see. I just want to make sure that I'm just like, I've just got everything kind of in order. So it kind of logically makes sense. Okay. So what I'm doing is, I need to get these envelope params as well. So I'm just like putting these functions in order. So it just kind of goes in the same order as the way that I'm kind of routing the whole signal. So I'm setting the oscillator type, and then we have we're going to get the envelope parameters, and then we're going to set those. Okay, so what we're doing is we're using this ADSR where we're inputting the wave that we want and that we want it to trigger on and off. Okay, and then what's this? I'm going to put this up here. Sorry about this. Just kind of reorganizing it in the logical way, so that when I put it up online, that it just kind of logically makes sense. So then we got the envelope here, okay, and then we're getting the filter parameters, and then what this input's going to be. So I've got set envelope, and then set envelope is just going to be what we're going to call in here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. And then filter cutoff. So we have this cutoff here that we've set to a global variable. So I could just put that in here, and then I could just put resonance there. So I recognize that I'm going through this quite quickly. If you have any questions or anything, or if there's any part that's not quite clear, drop me a comment or drop me a message on Discord, and then I'll try to clarify for you. Okay. Return filter 1. So we're going to make this a high pass. I hope that's. I'm just going to keep typing here rather than wait for it to catch up with me here. But yeah, I do understand. Like, I've done this quite a few times now, just like for practice. So I do know that I might be going quite quickly for some of you, but the reason I'm going so quickly is because I'm just covering a lot of stuff that I've kind of already covered. So filter.bandpass, set envelope, cutoff, resonance. Okay, and then in here, what I can do is, rather than doing this, I can just kind of get rid of all this now. And instead of saying the sound, I could say get or set filter. So set filter, because that's returning a double. Okay, remember we're just kind of passing different numbers around here. So I got this set filter. It's returning a type double, so that's why I can take it and I can just put it in this slot here that asks for a float or for a double here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just try to build that, see if everything works. So I've got build failed. So let's see what we need to do. So I'm not sure what that's about. So filter. So this needs to be filter 1. So that's why it wasn't auto-completing for me. So let's try now. Okay. Has too many arguments, expected 2 and have 3. Oh, this is high res rather than high pass. The reason that I know all of this is because I've gone through the Maximilian class quite a few times, so but not enough times to do this. So here we go. So that should be fine now. So let's try again. Oh, I need to put an else statement in here, but we can go back and do that in a second. So I just want to make sure it's actually playing. I don't know if it'll actually play. I still haven't like drawn the filter or anything. So so it still works fine, everything. And you can hear that the sound is actually filtered as well, which is cool. So all of that is fine. So we can just put an else statement here just to make sure that we've covered all conditions. I don't know really the right formatting here, whether it's supposed to be like this or whether I'm supposed to put this like that. I normally put it like that, so I'm just going to continue to do that. Return filter 1, low res, and then set envelope cutoff resonance. So that's fine. So now what we can do is we can start just drawing our our actual filter. So let's see here. So I'm just going to remove some of this blank space. And let's see. So we need to do that here in resized. So I've actually got some numbers here that I've kind of already done. And so I'm going to pull those up quickly rather than just kind of sit here and go through the UI and going back and forth. So if we look in filter.cpp, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to pull this in here. So in the future, I'm going to probably do I'm going to actually do some shorter tutorials. So I know I've realized that the actual the length of the videos has been quite long lately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some shorter videos that are just going to probably cover some key points that are just that I've covered over the tutorial. So they're just quite short, quite like to the point. So so we got a couple problems here. So first thing is we just need to change these variable names. What I call this. So filter cutoff and filter res. So this is filter res. Then we haven't actually even done anything with our sliders here, so we'll just go ahead and do those really quickly. Oh, so this is filter menu, set bounds. So I think that'll probably go away. Let's just see. So is it going to go away? Yes, it's fine. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some sliders now. So we have filter cutoff, set slider style. Then this is slider style. And then this is going to be a linear, what's a dial? I've just had a memory blank here. Rotary, horizontal, vertical drag is what I want. I'm just going to do that for filter res at the same time. I'm just going to take this, copy it, and paste it. Okay, then we're just going to set some values here. So filter cutoff, set range. And then this is going to go from 20. I think we did it at 10,000. 10,000 and 20. So that's all good. Filter cutoff, set val, or set value. And then I can say we're going to start here at 400 hertz. And then I can add it and make it visible as a child component of this filter class. So we got ampersand and filter cutoff. And I can do filter cutoff, set text box style, because we don't want a text box underneath it right now. So we could go slider, no text box. And then this would be false. Then this would be 0 and 0. And then we can do the same thing for filter res. And then we're just going to do a couple of these values as well. Filter res, set range. Okay, and then this, I'm going to put this from 1 to 5. Then filter res, set value. And then I'm just going to put that at 1. And I already did that. And then add and make visible. And then this is going to be filter res. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, because what we have is, pardon me, a situation where the filter cutoff, if I do the filter cutoff right now, what you're going to get is you're going to get a range from 20 to 10,000, and it's going to be linearly kind of set out. So what have I done here? What's happened? I think that's, oh, I don't have a comma. And what we need is we need it to be more kind of logarithmic, which is kind of closer to the style that we listen. So what I would like is, because a lot of our filter cutoff, a lot of our control, we're going to want to have a lot of control in that range between like 20 hertz and 1,000, and let's say just like 800 or 1,000 hertz. And then from 1,000 hertz on up to 10,000 hertz, we don't really need a whole lot of control over that, because you're not really going to hear a difference in the cutoff frequency. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this function called, this is something I've covered in last tutorials, is set skew factor from midpoint. So what this does is it sets up a logarithmic way that we can set up the dial, so then rather than having everything evenly incremented from 20 to 10,000, what we have is I can set a value that I want at the middle point, which I'll set to, let's just say I'll set it to 1,000 hertz. So what happens is that the middle point of the dial will be 1,000 hertz. So everything to the left of it will cover from 20 hertz to 1,000. And then what you have is at the middle point from 1,000 going to the right, you'll have it going to 10,000. So I hope that makes sense to you. That goes along with the way that we just kind of hear music in the same way that we do like with volume. We hear volume logarithmically. So if you're not quite sure what I mean, check my gain slider tutorial. It has some information on how we hear some of these things differently. So another thing that I'm going to cover here is, not sure if this might be a bug or maybe I just haven't had thought about what happens here, but this set skew factor from midpoint actually has to happen. So this I'm going to make a slider attachment, okay, to send to the processor, to the plugin processor, so the values from the slider go over to our processor value that we're going to call filter cutoff. But one thing that I found out just in practicing this was that you have to actually set the skew point, the skew factor from midpoint, after you've declared the processor value tree state slider attachment. Okay, so otherwise it won't work and it won't set the skew factor properly. So so I hope that makes sense. So if I do, so what we're going to do now is we're going to connect this filter val to the processor tree. So if I do filter val equals new audio processor value tree state slider attachment, and then arguments are the same, processor tree, and then we're going for filter, what's this parameter called? Filter cutoff. So filter cutoff, and then we're mapping it to our value that we're calling, our slider that we're calling filter cutoff. Okay, and then we can just do this same kind of thing for the filter resonance. So I can just do this and just change this to filter, or I think I called it res val. Just make sure I got the names. Yeah, so that's right, res val. Then we're just going to call this filter res. And then I'm attaching it to this slider that I have called filter res. Okay, so I hope all of this makes sense to you. And I know I've probably said that a million times now. So let's see. If I go back to, I've also done like some really kind of really basic UI stuff here. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to copy that here from, and I can just kind of explain it here very shortly. It's nothing fancy, no fancy UI stuff here, just something basic to make it look clean. So I've just created this rectangle called title area, which is where I'm just putting the title of the component that I'm calling filter. And then I have another rectangle that I'm calling area, and then I'm just drawing a rounded rectangle. So it's nothing fancy or anything. I'm going to post all this code on my GitHub as well afterwards, so you can look over it and pick it apart and everything. So this should be fine. This should be everything for the filter itself. So what I can do now is I can go to the processor, to the header file now, and I could just add that to, not to the processor, to the editor, and I could just add that. I could just add that to my main editor now, and this is called filter.h. Did I set a size? I set a size for it, so that's fine. And then let's see. So if I go in here, remember I need to actually create an object. So I'm just going to call it filter, and then I'll call it filter GUI. And then if I go over here, I need to instantiate it with a constructor, and then I've done it there. I'm gonna set, so far we have two components. We have our envelope and we have our oscillator. So now I'm going to add another 200 to the entire window here, so we can fit in the filter itself. And then I could do add and make visible. And then this is just filter GUI. And then I can just set this out. I'm just going to set it out here. Set bounds. And then what I could do is I could do the same thing that I did last tutorial. So I'm not going to explain it again, because I don't want to have to. I don't want to sound too repetitive. So, but what we're doing here is we're just taking the whole UI, and we're actually just cutting off a 200 by 200 square for each component, and then laying it out left to right. Okay, so I can just erase this. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly open up my let's see, where is it? My envelope. I've got some really basic UI stuff in here. Right here. I'm just going to take that and I'm going to copy it and paste it in. I'm not going to really cover it because it's just really basic graphic stuff. Nothing fancy. And even though it says it's fancy, it's not really. And then I've actually set out the bounds here a little bit better. So I'm going to actually probably do another UI tutorial here at some point. So this is just setting out the bounds, so everything is actually just set out nicely and neatly. And I'll cover that in a separate tutorial, exactly how I've kind of done this, where it's a little bit more dynamic, so we can resize it dynamically rather than just having like static positions. So what have I done here? So I've got this area, so I just need to get rid of this. And let's try again. Let's see if it all turns out okay. So here we go. Let's see how things look. So if I click on this, okay, so you see that I've just drawn a little rectangle around there. And now I've got the dials up. I can switch between low pass, high pass, and band pass. And then most importantly, let's just see if it actually works. Fingers crossed. And so far so good. So let me just so you can hear that it's crackling a little bit, so I can just actually just maybe clamp those values down a little bit. And let's make sure the resonance works. So that works fine. And then let's just make sure our envelope is still working fine. Okay, cool. So it looks like our envelope isn't working right. So let's see why that is, and then we can also put a nice little square around the oscillator as well. So let's go ahead and go back to this, and hopefully it'll make sense. So I've got set filter here, so that's fine. Let's go back here to set envelope. So I've got set envelope. Do I need to get rid of this? Let's just try this. So I think this should fix it. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna just stop it for a second. I'm actually just gonna clamp this value down just by multiplying it by 0. Let's just say 0.3. Then I'm also gonna go into the oscillator. Let me just pull up my oscillator code here for my little square. And where is it? Synth osc. And so I can just take this, put this here, and put that here. So that's just, once again, really basic UI stuff. Just drew a square, painted it yellow type stuff. So hopefully this envelope will work. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. So let's see what happens here. And we will do this. Connect everything up. Okay, everything looks great. So now let's just, cool. Yeah, so now the envelope works fine. There we go. Let's see if our high pass works. Yeah, so that works fine. And let's just make sure our square wave works. I'll set this back to low pass. So that works. That works fine. So yeah. So that's. I think I'm just gonna finish off the synthesizer, all the synthesizer tutorials here, because it's kind of, it's kind of like a sand on a beach. You can just keep going and going and going, and it's like, how far are you gonna keep taking it? Maybe I'll do one more just on, like, maybe give it some like FM capability or something. But other than that, I think I'll just try to finish this off. So one thing that I'm going to tell you is a bug that I just couldn't. I think it's actually something, and a problem with Maximilian, which is if I take this filter and I move it really, really, really fast, the filter blows up and it actually just cuts out all the sound on the whole computer itself. So I think that's a good opportunity for us to maybe in the next tutorial or two, just to like explore the actual Juce IIR and FIR filters, and actually build one of those ourselves and use that and start replacing and replace the filter that we have in place. But this is okay for now, but just make sure that you don't move this really, really quick, or else it'll all just kind of blow up on you, and I don't want that to happen. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and end this tutorial. We'll probably do 1 or 2 more tutorials on this Juce synth, and then we'll let this go on its way and move on to other things. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.